The tragic life of Stevie Wonder might sound heartbreaking at first, but his story is actually one of the most inspiring journeys in music history. Born 6 weeks early in Saginaw, Michigan in May 1950, he entered a world stacked against him from the start. His blindness came from a medical mistake. Placed in an incubator to survive his premature birth, doctors gave him too much oxygen, not realizing it could damage his eyes. This caused a condition called retinopathy of prematurity, leaving him blind before he was even 6 months old. Back then, treatments like laser therapy didn't exist, making his blindness permanent. But his challenges went far deeper than his disability. Stevie was born into poverty that wasn't just bad luck. It was built into the system. The federal government had labeled his neighborhood in Saginaw as hazardous back in 1937 through something called redlining. This policy kept black families trapped in poor areas by denying them investment and opportunities. Houses were rented to 3 or 4 black families at once, keeping them broken down while taking money from residents. Black families in Michigan faced a poverty rate around 30% in the late 1950s, far worse than everyone else. This crushing poverty destroyed his family. His father, Calvin Judkins, drank heavily and beat his mother, Lula Hardaway. The economic pressure became so extreme that he forced her into prostitution just to feed their children. These weren't random tragedies. They were the direct results of racist policies that strangled black communities. But here's where the story transforms. His mother showed incredible strength by leaving that violent relationship and moving her 3 children to Detroit. She found a low-paying but honest job and changed her son's last name to Morris, creating the stable foundation he needed. This wasn't just survival. It was an act of love that would change music history.
Her resilience in the face of such brutal circumstances became the emotional core of everything Stevie would later create. She proved that even when systems are designed to crush you, human determination can still prevail. Stevie's blindness, while devastating, became the key to his genius. He never saw it as just a limitation. He once said he never thought of being blind and black as a disadvantage. Without sight, he developed other senses to an amazing degree. He learned piano, harmonica, and drums at a very young age, relying completely on sound and touch. His blindness forced him to understand music in a way that sighted musicians couldn't match. In Detroit, he attended Fitzgerald Elementary, a public school with programs for visually impaired students. When his early success as Little Stevie Wonder created truancy problems because he was touring at age 12, Berry Gordy hired a tutor named Peggy Traub. She introduced him to Braille literacy, giving him the tools to read and write independently. This combination of formal education and specialized support helped him develop both his musical gifts and his intellectual foundation, proving that with the right resources, blind children could achieve anything. His relationship with sound went beyond just music. He treated the recording studio as a complete sonic environment where he could experiment freely. Without relying on visual cues like sheet music or instrument layouts, he developed an intuitive understanding of how sounds worked together. This unique approach meant he could hear possibilities that others missed. His blindness wasn't holding him back. It was giving him a creative advantage that would define an entire era of music. The way he worked in the studio was revolutionary. While other producers depended on visual charts and written arrangements, Stevie could hold entire compositions in his mind, hearing how each instrument would blend before a single note was recorded. This gave him an incredible level of control and allowed him to make creative decisions faster than his peers. His non-visual understanding of technology meant he could explore synthesizers and electronic instruments with pure sonic intuition, unencumbered by preconceptions about how they should be used based on their appearance or traditional applications. Before we continue with how Stevie turned these struggles into greatness, I'd love to hear from you. What artist or musician has inspired you to overcome your own challenges? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss stories like this one. At age 11, Motown Records signed him as Little Stevie Wonder in 1961. His first #1 hit came in 1963 with Fingertips Part 2, a live instrumental that showed off his incredible talent. But success almost disappeared just 2 years later. When he turned 15 in 1965, his voice started changing. Motown's CEO, Berry Gordy, worried he wouldn't sell records anymore. Some executives even wanted to cancel his contract completely. His producer, Clarence Paul, struggled to find songs that fit his new, deeper voice, and his chart success dried up. This could have been the end. Instead, it became a turning point. Songwriter Sylvia Moy saw something special in his maturing talent. She convinced the company to let her work with him. Together with Henry Cosby, they wrote a song specifically for his new voice called Uptight, Everything Is Alright. Released in November 1965, it became a massive hit, reaching number 3 on the pop chart and number 1 on the R&B chart for 5 weeks. Even more importantly, it was his first hit that he co-wrote. This proved he wasn't just a performer, he was a creator. The success of Uptight forced Motown to rush an entire album into production to capitalize on the momentum. This marked a fundamental shift in how the company saw him.
He was no longer just a novelty child star, but a legitimate artist with staying power. The song's commercial validation gave him leverage he'd never had before, and he was smart enough to recognize it as the foundation for something bigger. That fight for creative input planted a seed. Stevie realized that to truly protect his future and his family, he needed complete control over his music. When he turned 21, he used his success to renegotiate his contract. With encouragement from Marvin Gaye, who told him to trust the music within himself, Stevie gained total creative control over his recordings and publishing. This wasn't about ego, it was about survival and protecting his mother after everything she'd been through. This move rejected the entire Motown assembly line model, where artists were treated as interchangeable parts in a hit-making machine. Stevie demanded to be an autonomous writer, performer, and producer. This was almost unheard of at the time, especially for a black artist at a major label, but his combination of proven commercial success and undeniable talent gave him negotiating power that few others possessed. He transformed himself from a performer executing someone else's vision into a complete artist controlling every aspect of his work. What followed was his classic period, from 1971 to 1976, producing legendary albums like Music of My Mind, Talking Book, Inner Visions, Fulfillingness's First Finale, and Songs in the Key of Life. His blindness had made him a master of sound, and now he pioneered the use of synthesizers, reshaping soul and R&B music. He treated the recording studio as a sonic playground, exploring electronic textures that sighted musicians often overlooked. He became a virtual one-man band, playing multiple instruments and producing cohesive albums that were complete artistic statements. These albums weren't just collections of hit singles, they were unified works of art with deep themes running through them.
He pushed R&B and funk into what became known as progressive soul, proving that popular music could be both commercially successful and artistically ambitious. His mastery of synthesizers and electronic instruments opened new sonic territories that influenced countless artists who came after him. This was music that made you think while it made you dance. His music reflected the pain of his childhood. In his 1973 song, Living in the City, he sang about 4 walls that ain't so pretty and parents working 14-hour days for almost nothing. But he also sang about dignity, noting that clothes are old but never dirty. This challenged stereotypes about poverty and showed the strength his mother had maintained through impossible circumstances. His drive wasn't just about fame, it was a promise to improve his mother's life, which he accomplished beautifully. Stevie also transformed his blindness into a philosophy of vision. He argued that just because someone lacks the use of their eyes doesn't mean they lack vision. He turned this into advocacy, promoting the WIPO Marrakesh Treaty to help visually impaired people access published works. He used his platform to critique society, pointing out that sighted people shouldn't be blind to problems that need fixing in the world. His impact went beyond music. His 1980 album Hotter Than July included the song Happy Birthday, which he used to campaign for making Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday a national holiday. His efforts succeeded, showing how personal experiences of injustice could create real political change. The poverty from redlining, the trauma his mother endured, his blindness from medical error, and the near cancellation of his contract all fueled his determination to control his destiny and speak for those without voices. His albums during this period became more than entertainment. They were statements,
on racism, inequality, and spirituality that elevated him to a major cultural voice.
The unique combination of experiences, navigating the world without sight, while growing up in extreme poverty caused by structural racism, gave him a perspective that nobody else could replicate. This wellspring of empathy and creativity allowed him to transcend what anyone expected from a Motown artist and become something much bigger. What makes Stevie Wonder's story so powerful isn't the tragedy. It's how he transformed every obstacle into fuel for greatness. His blindness wasn't a weakness. It was the foundation of his unique musical genius. The poverty and trauma weren't just pain. They were the source of his deep empathy and social consciousness. The corporate threats didn't break him. They taught him to fight for independence. Every challenge became a tool he used to build one of the most influential careers in music history. Stevie Wonder didn't succeed despite his hardships. In many ways, he succeeded because of them. They shaped his perspective, sharpened his talents, and gave him an unshakable determination to create on his own terms. His story proves that tragedy doesn't have to define you. With resilience, vision, and refusal to accept limitations, you can transform even the darkest beginnings into something extraordinary. If his story inspired you, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more incredible stories of triumph. What lesson from Stevie's journey resonates most with you? Let me know in the comments.